what do you think about this? That, it's a birthday party, and now it just feels super political.
Oh man, I'm not gonna get dragged into that. I'm here to party with America, man. Music is made to bring people together, and that's what we're here to do, man. We're just gonna represent the '90s. I don't take anything too serious. I don't think anybody else should. I think that we should just dance. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you got to get out and pursue it with dance. It's all about just us making it this far.
Good morning, rise and freedom, guys. Wake up, America. I'm Austin Peterson. This is the Wake Up America show, and you're watching the For Liberty Network. That's some good advice, man. Just dance. Deport. Wake up, America. You guys ready to have some fun today? America's 22 days from our 250th birthday, and somehow the steadiest man in American entertainment right now is Vanilla Ice. To the extreme, rock a mic like a vandal. Word to your mother. Now, 5 acts have dropped out of the Freedom 250 birthday concert on the National Mall in less than 24 hours this week. Vanilla Ice stayed. He told TMZ he comes from the 80s and 90s when people didn't take all this mess so seriously, and once you commit, you don't quit. And honestly, that might be the cleanest moral statement to come out of show business this year. The artist who left had no problem performing for Democratic presidents. No public crisis of conscience there. They didn't feel like it was too political. No painful statement about nonpartisan values when Martina McBride showed up to sing for Obama. Those values showed up right on time. But the moment that the National Mall called for America's 250th birthday under a Republican administration, young MC made it about 6 hours before the comment section called him a MAGA douchebag, and he was gone by midnight. Bret Michaels cited actual threats against his family. And, that is important because saboteurs had already cut fuel lines and contaminated the National Mall before a single act was already announced. Yes, political vandalism. Now, Vanilla Ice, he saw this same mess. He called his mom and said, you know what? He's still showing up. Now, John Oliver can laugh at the lineup all he wants and do this, but it's 2026 now, Vanilla. You can do that all he wants, but the story is bigger than the playlist of this story. The left is trying to make a birthday party for America feel dangerous, shameful, or politically radioactive. But that same pressure campaign that the left is running, it's showing up outside Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey. Anti-ICE riots have been running for 10 days. Death threats being made against federal agents. Glenn Reynolds over at the New York Post, he wrote a piece that says that what's happening does fit the federal definition of domestic terrorism. And the images aren't helping this kind of like spontaneous protest story that the media is trying to run. They've got gas masks, which are expensive, face shields, medical equipment, bottled water, and they're all pre-positioned where the riots show up, because honestly, normal citizen outrage doesn't usually arrive with a supply chain intact. The logistics of these protests are suspicious. Now, Chuck Schumer threatened Supreme Court justices by name on the steps of the court. Hakeem Jeffries has been calling for maximum warfare. The same people who spent 4 years calling January 6th an insurrection are now watching organized, equipped, repeatable street action get covered like it's a protest culture, but they have better snacks. After January 6th, the federal government moved fast, and they moved hard, and they prosecuted, went after every single person that they saw there. Now, Glenn Reynolds is asking in New York Post, where's this response now? Right, the answer, of course, is sitting right there in the silence. America turns 250 in 22 days, and the guy holding the line for the national birthday concert doesn't vote, hasn't charted in 35 years, and apparently just believes you should be allowed to celebrate the country without, feeling like you joined, or without being treated like you joined a cartel. Camellia is here today from Americans for Prosperity on Amendment 5. That's the Missouri ballot measure that a mystery Delaware nonprofit just dropped $1.9 million to try and stop, right? So Tom Pappert is here as well at 8:30 because Shawn Ryan, he's like this former spook who's become a big podcaster. He spent 3 hours with Megyn Kelly saying he's blackpilled, and he called core MAGA pedophiles. So if you've considered yourself MAGA at any time, then congratulations, you're a pedo. So the comment section, of course, told the artist what America means this morning. Vanilla Ice is the one who is showing up. Vanilla Ice, ice, baby.
And kind of bringing people together. And that's what this is about. I don't think that it should be about any political thing or anything like that. I don't even vote, so I don't even care. And if Biden called up, hey, and he said, my daughter's getting married, we need Vanilla Ice, I'd go play. It's not a big thing. You play for your fans. You know, we don't get a chance to pick our fans. They pick us. And I'll go play for Putin, and I'll play in Iran if you want. It don't matter. There's fans everywhere. Music is not political, man. It's universal. Just brings people together.
Over the years, we've covered these stories where, you know, people, big celebrities, singers, have gone to Saudi Arabia, other countries that are problematic in terms of human rights. It seems like when you do it outside the country,
it's a good follow-up.
It's fair game. But when you do it in the United States, it really becomes divisive. And I just mentioned all the people who have bailed from this, and they're bailing because they think that this has that Trump stamp on it.
Yeah.
And that Trump stamp is everywhere now, and now it's going to be on $250 bills, it looks like, you know, as well as building and arches and ballrooms and all this stuff. So people are saying
that's a good follow-up question. Yeah, you could perform in Iran, they won't give a shit. You could perform for Vladimir Putin, the left doesn't care. But you perform at the 250th here in the United States, and if Donald Trump is involved in any way, shape, or form, then they got a problem with it. Isn't that interesting? Good follow-up there. Let's give it up to Vanilla Ice. To the extreme. Rock a mic like a vandal. Does everybody but remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Part 2? Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. Did they change it? Was it Go Turtle, go? No, it's Go Ninja, go. Anyways, don't forget, guys, we do have amazing 250th anniversary collection merch for you over at the Grift Shop. If you go to forlibertyshop.com during the live show, you can get yourself a sweet Liberty 250 shirt like the one that I'm wearing. And God bless it, guys. I finally got it in the mail. My, hold on, switch that camera angle there. My beautiful 1776 wallet, leather wallet. I got the gold and black. It's a little hard to tell the gold color from the light that I'm rocking right now. But these beautiful 1776 wallets available at the Grift Shop at forlibertyshop.com. So Red Pill Prof, if you haven't got your 1776 wallet yet, stand in solidarity and choose whichever color you like. We've got several different color combos. But the 1776 wallet's big hit at the shop at forlibertyshop.com. It's Drew Van Runkle. It's not Revenge of the Use. It's Secret of the Use. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. Here we go. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going off. The show's going off the rails right away.
The police, what are you doing?
Here we go.
I win, you lose. Ninja Turtle face, Iceman. You know I'm not playing. Then I take a show what the turtles are saying. Ninja,
Ninja, right.
Wishbone Crunch on 2.
All right, there we go. Here we go.
You like what you saw? Then give it up for a turtle!
All right, talk about a blast from the past there. So America's turned 250 years old on July the 4th. The Great American State Fair opens on the mall. They've got 16 days of free concerts. They're going to have a World's Fair, and they're going to have a celebration of the country that's produced more freedom, more prosperity, more cultural output than any civilization in human history. Freedom 250 was organized under a White House initiative. They announced the lineup on May 27th. They had Flo Rida, CNC Music Factory, the surviving member of Milli Vanilli, and Vanilla Ice, whose real name, of course, is Robert Van Winkle. Now, this guy hasn't had a top 40 hit since 1990, but everybody remembers his music, and we all danced to it as kids. So I was excited and looking forward to it, and I'm glad he didn't drop out. But within 24 hours of the announcement, the story of Freedom 250 was not America's birthday party. It was the body count. Morris Day and the Time, out. Young MC, out. The Commodores, which I was really excited for, out. Bret Michaels, who I don't care about, out. Martina McBride, don't care, out. 5 of the 9 announced acts were gone before the first tent stake was even driven into the mall. And the stated reason from every artist who even bothered to explain themselves was that they'd been told it was nonpartisan, and then they were told it wasn't, and of course they had to go. So Martina McBride wrote on Instagram that she'd asked lots of questions and been assured that it was a nonpartisan event to celebrate all 50 states. And then she said things started changing. Young MC wrote on Facebook that the artists were never told about any political involvement with the event. The Commodores issued a statement about choosing not to publicly affiliate with any single party. One person issued no statement at all. He just confirmed he was performing, Robert Van Winkle, and he said, once you commit, you don't quit. Yeah, so he says, I'm from the 80s and 90s. We didn't take all this mess so serious. So he told the whole country he doesn't even vote, which might mean he, could be latent libertarian vibes, especially with his comment about, I'd perform for Iran and Vladimir Putin. Oh, yeah. I don't vote. So it sounds like a libertarian party guy. So the most patriotic entertainer in America. This is either a tribute to Vanilla Ice or it's an indictment of everybody else. So you can decide which. But some of us remember Martina McBride back in 2009. She stood in the East Room of the White House and sang Stevie Wonder's You and I at a ceremony where Barack Obama and Michelle Obama had honored Wonder with the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Most Popular Song. This was a White House event. It was hosted by a sitting president. It was organized by a presidential administration, and nobody called it partisan. Nobody accused her of lending her platform to a political agenda. She just sang. She went home. It was a lovely evening in the White House, and her conscience was apparently fine on that. Now, Young MC, he's performed under administrations going back to George H.W. Bush. According to his own Rolling Stone profile that came out this week, he, quote, backed Bill Clinton and was a presidential partner for Barack Obama. So presidential partner, if you've never heard of this term, this is a formal relationship with the sitting administration. So that's not a gig that you stumble into. That is an agreement that you come together for. And he performed at events connected to the Democratic president willingly and repeatedly without complaint. But this week, a concert on the National Mall to celebrate America's 250th birthday was too partisan for him. He lasted actually, I think, 6 hours before the comment section ran him off because online commenters called him a MAGA douchebag for accepting the booking. John Oliver called the lineup, quote, people you haven't thought about since 2009. Bill Maher said the event showed Trump was concerned for the unemployed, which is honestly the best joke about this. So what it is the artists don't want to be associated with the uncool crowd. So they got their political cover. And then there are the Commodores, which is such a huge disappointment because honestly, I've always loved the Commodores. They issued a statement this week about choosing not to publicly affiliate with any single political party. Lionel Richie, he's a founding member of the Commodores. He performed at Joe Biden's inauguration in January of 2021. No problem there. But the Commodores just discovered their allergy to partisan affiliation sometime between January 21 and 26. So, there's no operating principle here, right? This is a mob. And then this is capitulation to the mob. But the mob decided that performing for Trump at America's birthday party is a career-ending association. And the artists, of course, who built their entire lives on American audience and American commerce, American money, American freedom of expression, they all calculated that their streaming numbers mattered more than showing up to this event. And Vanilla Ice says he doesn't even vote. He just thinks that we should celebrate our country, which is the best position that I've seen from any of these idiots. And I love it. So Brett Michaels, he didn't even cite political disagreement when he pulled out. He actually cited fear as his reason. So his statement specifically mentioned concerns about the safety of his fans, his band, his family, and himself. He said that he'd gotten threats that were completely unfounded and unforgivable. An earlier Freedom 250 event was vandalized before the event was even announced. Saboteurs cut fuel lines. They contaminated the grounds of the National Mall. And Glenn Reynolds wrote a piece in the New York Post yesterday that I think is dead on, nails the whole concept here. We've been having 10 days of anti-ICE riots outside Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey. There have been these death threats happening against federal agents. They've been threats against these performers at the national birthday celebration. Well, federal law 18 U.S. Code 2331 defines domestic terrorism as criminal acts dangerous to human life that appear intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion. So what's happening at Delaney Hall with these ICE protests and what's happening around Freedom 250 fits that definition. So what's happening to Brett Michaels is an act of domestic terrorism. So these aren't just spontaneous eruptions that are happening, by the way. These are organized. Wherever these riots materialize, the supplies always materialize with them. They bottle water, gas masks, face shields, medical equipment, suspicious stacks of bricks in the street where no other construction is going on, snacks, piles of snacks already there, already organized. Guys, that's not spontaneous. Like, that is funded. That comes from left-wing NGOs bankrolled by left-wing billionaires who route money through the tax-exempt organizations into operations that train, equip, and coordinate the people on the ground. Right? They give money to these institutions, these NGOs, and then they go out there and they fund people like, Joe Kent and Jack Hunter. And Chuck Schumer stood on the steps of the Supreme Court and threatened conservative justices by name. Weeks later, an armed man showed up at Brett Kavanaugh's home. Hakeem Jeffries called for maximum warfare against Republicans and Trump and said in April, right after that assassination attempt that happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner where the guy did the Naruto run trying to get past the guards, and then the female guards were running like hell. Democrats have spent years comparing Trump to Hitler. They call him everything's a threat to democracy, which is fascinating. They're going to... If Spencer Pratt manages to make it through the cheating that's happening out in California right now with the votes, which the Democrats definitely don't want you paying attention to right now, then they're going to call him a threat to democracy, which is fascinating considering what's happening with the votes in California right now. Whatever you do, don't look at what's happening with the votes in California right now, you threats to democracy. And of course, then the left is going to, they're going to be bewildered when their more unbalanced supporters decide to act on the premise that the people at the birthday party of a fascist state deserve to be threatened into staying home, right? So this is what we call stochastic terrorism. That is inflammatory language that's deployed to activate violence that the speaker themselves can't be directly connected to. But the left actually coined that term, which is an interesting case of projection because they should recognize what it describes themselves. And for 4 years, of course, you guys remember, we heard nothing but January 6th, January 6th, January 6th, endless January 6th coverage for years and years and years. All the left could talk about was January 6th. Everything was January 6th was the left's 9/11. If you remember. The hoes were mad. So, but the thing about January 6th is that there was no network of NGOs. There were no pre-positioned gas masks. There was no medical gear along the Capitol perimeter. No left-wing billionaires were funneling tax-exempt dollars into training operations for the people who went inside the Capitol. It's just a mob that got out of hand. It broke windows and photographed themselves in the Senate chamber. And then the country spent 4 years. They had 4 congressional committees and 2 impeachment trials processing this as the defining threat to American democracy. Quite frankly, I think it was the funniest thing that's ever happened in D.C. And we should have stormed the Capitol back when they passed the New Deal. Am I right? Such a shame. The federal government deployed every resource that they had within days of January 6th. I remember that they were using people's cell phones and that leftists were collaborating on Reddit to determine where every single person was and then turning people into the federal authorities. Why can't we get that level of organization? Why are we not working so hard to destroy the lives of the people who want to kill this country? America is 22 days from turning 250 years old, the oldest constitutional republic on earth, still standing, still free, still capable of throwing a 16-day World's Fair in the National Mall between the monuments. The political opposition has made it their project to ensure that nobody with a career risks showing up. Not through argument, superior argumentation, they're doing it through threat, through mob action. They've got social media campaigns, they're cutting fuel lines in the middle of the night. And they're making safety concerns serious enough to make Bret Michaels back out of the birthday party. That is who these people are. These are their methods. But Robert Van Winkle, God bless you, Robert Van Winkle. God bless Vanilla Ice. He's still performing. The guy doesn't vote. His mom's proud of him. He's the most patriotic entertainer we have. And for that, we thank you.
You like what you saw? Then give it up for a turtle! Ninja!
Ninja! Lots of awkward, empty pauses. Is that my fault? Sorry, guys. Rockstar missing a party. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. If you guys still love America and you want to fight back and you've got the pizza power, head on over to forlibertyshop.com. Check out the Grift Shop. When you go to forlibertyshop.com, we've got the best 250th anniversary collection in the entire world. I got my 1776 wallet yesterday, loaded it up with all of my credit cards and stuff. I got the black and gold wallet, but we've got a bunch of different colors for this one, which I think are really pretty. Check this out. So I went for the black and gold one that you can see pictured right there that we've got. And then we've got black and brown. We've got black and gray, also a really handsome wallet. These have been really successful for us in the store. People love the 1776 design. When you see that price, don't forget, guys, that includes shipping. And if you buy more than one product, guys, you can save 15%. Just put that code in, buy two, get 15. If you don't have to buy two of the same thing, you can buy one wallet and you can buy a shirt and use the code buy two get 15 and you'll save a bunch of money on your purchase at forlibertyshop.com. Check it out, my 1776 wallet, really good quality. It was actually an upgrade over my previous wallet. So yeah, looking forward to whipping it out and people being like, "Oh my God, he's got the most beautiful wallet. Where did you get it?" You got it at the Grift Shop. Thank you to Byron. Thank you to Drew Van Runkle and anyone else who's decided to gift us this morning with the Griftus. We appreciate it very much. And of course, Rumble Rants count as well. We do have a bonus documentary for you guys if you want to watch. Thank you very much for supporting the Wake Up America show and for supporting freedom and liberty in the United States of America. All right, who's ready to talk about a state of misery? Somewhere in Missouri right now, not here, but somewhere. Somebody's in a middle seat on the Southwest flight, looking down at the ground here at us and thinking about nothing. Just killing time on their flight between Newark and Phoenix. 37,000 feet above a state they never once considered visiting, while underneath them, underneath the cloud cover and the condescension of the urban elites, sits more natural wonders per square mile than most of the places that they're spending their vacation dollars. So this isn't a tourism pitch. Don't come to Missouri because we don't need everybody to know. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend that you turn this, and I would never say this, but I know how important it is for Missourians that people don't come and clog up our natural wonders. But go ahead and just turn the stream off right now because I'm going to reveal some secrets right now that Missourians get legitimately angry when I post about. So right now is a perfect time for you guys to just go ahead, turn off the stream, go outside in your whatever urban environment that you're living in right now, and just keep thinking that Missouri is just like Nebraska or like Kansas, guys. But here's the truth: if you decide that you want to stick around, is that Missouri is one of the most beautiful states of all 50, and I've visited damn near all of them. Now, Missouri, we usually get treated like we're like a geographical placeholder between somewhere and somewhere else. People confuse us with Kansas. They think about fields of corn or Branson bumper stickers. But here's what Kansas doesn't have: the confluence of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. So the only place in America where those two rivers meet, it happens to also be the launch point for every westward expedition that this nation ever sent out. Lewis and Clark left from Missouri. The Oregon Trail started in Missouri. The Pony Express started in Missouri. The Gateway Arch is not like an Aaronic monument. This is a marker at the literal geographic hinge of American expansion. And the state that it stands in usually gets dismissed by people whose idea of nature is Central Park. Missouri has more than 6,000 caves. We also have the highest density of natural springs in North America. And some of those springs are blue water springs. We've got a lake that has 1,150 miles of shoreline, which is more coastline than the state of California has on the Pacific Ocean. And we are a landlocked state in a region that those same coastal people use like it's an adjective for boring. And the word that they use, and when I lived on the East Coast, I heard it all the time when I told people where I'm from, is flyover. Like they were flying over us on the way to some place that matters. So the rest of this segment this morning is for everybody who ever used the word flyover and meant it. You have been wrong, and I'm going to show you how wrong you are, and here is the proof. So during the Great Depression, the farmers in Shannon County, Missouri couldn't afford to feed their horses, so they turned them loose. This is an interesting story. They walked the horses to the edge of the Ozark National Forest. They unclipped their leads, and then they just left them there. Those horses didn't die. They actually figured it out. They bred, they went feral, and by the 1990s, 4 distinct herds of wild horses were running the 80,000 acres between the Current River and the Jacks Fork River, which was near a small town called Eminence, which is one of my favorite vacation spots here in Missouri. The National Park Service moved to remove them from federal land, and the town of Eminence actually organized a legal campaign to fight back against the feds, and it took it to the Supreme Court. Missouri Senators Kit Bond and John Ashcroft took up the case in Congress, and on October 3rd of 1996, Bill Clinton signed a federal law making the herd a permanent protected feature of the Ozark National Scenic Riverways. So about 50 wild horses currently roam somewhere between Shannon County in 4 herds: Shawnee Creek, Broadfoot, Round Spring, Rocky Creek. If you show up at sunrise, you can drive out to the Broadfoot Fields north of Eminence or the Shawnee Fields to the east, and you stand still and wait. They're predominantly gray and beautiful in Appaloosa, foals that are born dark and then they lighten with age, and there's no admission fee. There's no viewing platform, there's no gift shop, just wild horses in the Missouri Ozarks protected by an act of Congress, and it's free to anybody willing to drive up to a town of about 532 people and get up early. Now, the reason to stay in Eminence is the river. The Current River and the Jacks Fork together form the Ozark National Scenic Waterways, and Congress created this in 1964. It was the first federally protected river system in American history. This is a full 4 years before the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act existed. The water is spring-fed year-round from 7 major springs, and it runs cold and clear enough that people who floated it describe the color as vodka. That is how clear it is. Beautiful. You can rent a canoe from one of the outfitters in town, and we have done this together with a bunch of our supporters and friends, gotten together and gone to this river. It is so beautiful. You can actually see the riverbed 20 feet down. Limestone bluffs on both sides, gravel bars where you can pull off every quarter mile and stop and swim. You don't need a wristband or a resort fee. You don't have to pay hundreds of dollars. There's no experience package. You just the oldest federally protected river in the country, moving through the Ozarks the same way it has for 10,000 years. This is another interesting story. Missouri elk were actually gone, completely extinct, at least in the state, by 1865. The hunters had wiped them out for hides, leaving the meat behind in the Ozark Hills. So this state had no elk for 146 years. But in 2011, the Missouri Department of Conservation trucked approximately 100 elk from Kentucky. They had rebuilt their own herd, and they trucked them over here into this 29,000-acre conservation area that they call Peck Ranch, and that's in Shannon County, Missouri. They burned fields and thinned timber and managed the habitat. And today, roughly 200 elk live in and around Peck Ranch. And And on a good evening run through the self-guided driving loop, you can actually watch about 75 or 80 of them come out into the open fields at dusk. You just stay in your car, sit out there in the evening, and watch these beautiful herds of elk coming out. The gravel road winds through oak pine forest and it opens up into managed grasslands, and the elk are there. So this mistake that they made 160 years ago, they corrected over 15 years of quiet conservation work. And Missouri has one of the best conservation departments in the entire state. It's kind of a running joke in Jefferson City, Missouri, that you can attack a lot of the lobbies, you can attack a lot of the government institutions, but the one institution that you don't mess with that is universally popular here in the state of Missouri is the Conservation Department. And it's easy to see why. 6 miles west of Eminence on Highway 106, there's a 130-year-old red mill. There you go, right there. That sits on the bank of Alley Spring, and it's actually been photographed more than any other mill in the country. This is the Alley Spring roller mill that went up in 1893, and it's powered entirely by the spring beside it. And it pushes blue-green water out of the limestone. They have a general store, a blacksmith shop, and a post office. And the community held Saturday dances and summer baseball games until the logging industry collapsed and the local economy collapsed in 1918, and the people all scattered away from there. So the mill's still there, the spring's still running, and the National Park Service just runs it as sort of a museum right now, and it's free admission. So if you are looking for a great day trip, then you can go check out that mill as well. So just east of there, Rocky Falls drops through a volcanic rock shut-in and empties into a cold, deep pool at the base of a falls. On a weekday in June, there will usually be about a dozen people in there. And on Saturday in August, there's going to be more, because either way, the water is cold, ancient rocks, and it costs nothing. Missouri charges admission for almost none of these things that you're seeing right now. So there you go. Johnston shut-ins, that's the one that everybody really talks about, that Stephanie and I are looking at going to pretty soon. This state park actually formed 1.4 billion years ago from volcanic ash that cooled into rhyolite, which is smooth and erosion resistant. And it's almost frictionless when wet. So when the Black River hits it, the river has nowhere to go but through the cracks. So over 10,000 years of current, those cracks have become canyons, and then those canyons have turned into pools and chutes that you can, like natural water slides, which is, and the potholes, which is when the Park Service, they say shut-ins, that's what they're talking about, is those water slides. So the Black River created a beautiful water park, natural water park, out of billion-year-old volcanic rock, and the state of Missouri, of course, keeps it beautiful and keeps it free. On December of 2005, there was a story where this reservoir that was above the park failed, and 1.3 billion gallons of water came down the mountain in 12 minutes, ripped trees out by the roots. It packed the shut-ins with boulders and debris, and it broke the park superintendent's house off from their foundation, and then they got in there, cleaned it up, and rebuilt it, and reopened the Johnston shut-in. So whatever nature takes 1.4 billion years to build and a reservoir failure takes 12 minutes to destroy, it turns out you could put back together if you're just stubborn enough about it. And one thing about Missourians is that we are extremely stubborn. 2 hours northwest in the Lake of the Ozarks, a Kansas City businessman named Robert Snyder rode to a bluff above the Niangua River in 1903 and decided to build a 60-room European castle there. European castle, no joke. Stone walls, they had a center atrium, water tower, servants' quarters, the whole project. But the man who was building that died before it was finished. He was actually killed in one of the first automobile accidents in Missouri history, but his sons kept building the castle, and they never finished it either. And then the incomplete castle burned in 1942. But what stands in that location today at Hahatonka State Park are these beautiful stone ruins on a cliff above the lake with a natural bridge below. And then there is a cave system beneath that with a spring that pushes about 48 million gallons of water per day through this whole geological stack. So there's one place in the world where you can stand in the ruins of an unfinished Gilded Age castle on a cliff above a spring-fed Ozark Lake, and that is Hahatonka. Eminence, they've got the wild horses in the river. Tonka has the castle, and then, and then. And then there is Rolla. There was a former police chief by the guy by the name of Mark Kearse. He bought an abandoned rock quarry and drained it, removed all the rocks from the bottom, and then treated the water with a safe blue dye. This is an interesting one. This is a 65-foot water slide over a quarry. They've got cliff platforms, 10, 15, and 20 feet. It's called Fugitive Beach, which most people in Missouri know. But if you're not from Missouri, then you'd be surprised to see this blue water quarry that people go from, all these beautiful platforms that you can jump from. They've got a tiki bar named after Ricky Bobby, and the water looks like, look at that, it looks like the Bahamas. And that is in Rolla, Missouri, off Highway 72. So if you're looking for great places to vacation, take your kids, and you happen to find yourself in the Midwest, there you go. So this is, I don't know if it's my favorite one, but I know it's the one that if Camellia is listening to the show right now, and she'll be joining us in 20 minutes. Hi, CJ. This is the one that I know she's going to love. My brother loves to talk about this one as well. Every year, we always go during the holiday season, Oktoberfest. We always go to Hermann, Missouri, because we just like to dress up like German people and have a good time. Missouri has a huge German community. But Missouri actually has a wine country, if you can believe it. It's absolutely beautiful scenery over in Hermann, Missouri, and we like to go there every October. So this is an interesting story. In 1868, and nobody knows exactly, when that year, there was a French botanist named Jules Émile Planchon, and he got down on his hands and knees in a dying vineyard somewhere in southern France and held a magnifying glass to a grape root. But what he saw in his lens was this tiny yellow aphid called phylloxera, and it was sucking the life out of the vine. So this aphid had been quietly destroying French vineyards for about 2 years at this point. Over the next 15 years, this aphid would eliminate nearly 40% of all French grapevines. The entire French wine industry was actually on the edge of permanent collapse. And the answer to that collapse came from Missouri. Charles Valentine Riley, which is Missouri's state entomologist, read Planchon's findings and recognized the description of the problem immediately because he had seen this same aphid on Missouri vines. The difference was that in Missouri, phylloxera only attacked leaves and never roots. Apparently, Missouri rootstock was immune to this animal. So Riley wrote to Planchon in 1870. They met in Missouri in 1873, and by 1872, before they'd even finished their formal research on this problem, Hermann winemaker George Husman had already loaded 400,000 vine cuttings onto ships bound for Montpellier, France. So Missouri roots, French grapes, grafted together, and the grafting worked. So millions of cuttings followed. Today, virtually every grapevine in France grows on American Missouri wine rootstock. So the French built 2 statues actually honoring Missouri wine pioneers in Montpellier, France, where they still stand today. Husman then moved to a region in California where nobody was growing wine yet, Napa Valley. He recognized the terroir. He established growing operations, started publishing books on viticulture, and spent the last 20 years of his life building what became a $50 billion industry that everybody knows. So the man who saved French wine also founded Napa, and he was from Hermann, Missouri. Then, of course, Prohibition hit in 1919, and as we all know, yes, we know libertarians, we're not fans, right? The streets of Hermann reportedly ran red as barrels were emptied and destroyed back at those times. Stonehill Winery's famous apostle casks, 12 massive barrels, each carved with the face of one of the 12 apostles from the Bible, were shipped to South America for safekeeping, and they have still never been seen again. It's one of the Missouri's more interesting mysteries. The winery sat empty for 46 years, but in 1965, Jim and Betty Jim and Betty Held restarted Stonehill Winery, and it now produces 300,000 gallons a year, and they've won more than 4,000 awards for wine since 1991. 2 miles south of town, Adam Puchta Winery has been in the same German family since it opened. The oldest continuous family-owned winery in the United States, right here in Hermann, Missouri. And this is a river valley that saved Bordeaux from going dark. The French have the statues, and we've got the wine country. And apparently the rest of the country has been flying over it. So if you're into wine, there you go. The 12 Apostle casks. Yes, that was the most interesting story that we found out too, Camellia, if that's the one that you're finding interesting. So people are like, oh, I haven't heard sound effects yet. Oh, well, that makes sense. No wonder. Well, you know what we should do? We should hit the womp womp button. Let's see. Yeah, you have to turn the sound effects on if you want to have sound effects. That comes out. It turns out, yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed the content anyway, guys. I'm going to take a quick little break, guys. Why don't you head on over to the Griff Shop, and when we get back, I'll find something else to talk about. "'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again. George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them." Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back, with sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government. Get off my back. Get out of my pocket. And let me...
4 months ago, I got a call from a fraternity brother of mine from Southwest Missouri State who works for Glennon Advertising now, Jim Tolman. He called me up and asked me if I'd be interested in doing a few promotional spots for Missouri tourism. And I really didn't have the time, but I thought I'd make time to do it because I think it's a great idea to wake up to Missouri, to get people to come in and see what we've taken for granted for so many years. It's a great place to come home to, and I try to do it as often as I can. And I think we should do our best to try to get other people to do that, to wake up to Missouri.
Did you know there's a mountain in Missouri that's older than the Appalachians? Older than the Rockies? Older than the trees? West Missouri. It's older than almost every exposed landform on the North American continent. Most people driving past it on I-44 have never even heard this name. Taumsauk Mountain. Yeah, mountain. This is in the San Francois range. San Francois. Yeah, it tops out at 1,772 feet above sea level, which isn't very impressive on paper until you learn what you're standing on. So the Taumsauk Mountain, if you haven't heard about this one, it was formed by erosion, kind of like the Ozark Plateau around these mountains. They were pushed up by the volcanic activity during the Precambrian activity, which means that this mountain here in Missouri is billions of years old, and it may be the only terrain in the United States that was never submerged in an ancient sea. At least that's what the geologists will tell you if you go visit Taumsauk Mountain State Park right here in Missouri. Good morning, I'm Austin Peterson. Camellia Peterson's going to be here in just a few minutes to talk to you about some of the political issues of Missouri. It's all Missouri today. There's a 3-mile loop trail that drops down through an oak pine forest here in Taumsack. It's actually the tallest waterfall in Missouri. 132 feet of water that drops in 3 distinct stages down these ancient volcanic ledges. You can see some of them right there. And there's a clear rock bottom pool at the base of these things. The Osage Indians named that fall after a chief's daughter who threw herself from the cliff to die with her warrior, which was her lover that her father had condemned to death, and whose blood, according to the legend, split the mountain and created the spring that feeds the falls to this day. There's no admissions fee. The state park charges you nothing. You just show up, lace up your boots, and then you can stand at the highest point in Missouri on top of one of the oldest mountains in this entire continent, and then you can look out over the valley that has 700 feet of vertical relief below you and nobody around. The travel websites don't really list this one because they want you to book a 4-star hotel in Sedona. An hour north on Route 66, Merrimack Caverns has been advertising itself on barn roofs here in Missouri since the 1930s, and it is exactly what it promises. A 4.6-mile cave system 3 miles off the interstate, and it's 58 degrees inside. I say indoors, but in the cave year-round. They've got 5 layers of chambers, including a natural ballroom, 50 feet wide and 50 feet across. And none of this, I tell you, none of this was paid for by the Missouri Tourism Agency. I just love my state. There's also a scuba diving cave on the St. Louis side. Yeah, the St. Louis side, they're really proud of Merrimack Caverns. But there is a quarry there that a Clearwater quarry. And so I think it's an old iron mine that you can actually, if you're a scuba diver, you can go inside. And I don't think that you don't have to have a cave diving certification, even though it has all the qualities of a cave dive. I need to get out there and do a little dive. Let's see if I can find that video actually. Yeah, there it is. This is my favorite scuba diving account to watch. This is Jonathan Bird. If anybody here is into scuba diving, which I know it's kind of like a niche hobby, but highly recommend.
The Blue World team travels to landlocked Missouri to dive inside a spooky abandoned lead mine.
Yeah, awesome. Welcome to Jonathan Bird's
Blue World.
This guy has some of the most amazing videos. Especially if you're into military history, because Jonathan Bird, he'll sometimes do dives on like Japanese military wrecks and places. His dive videos are some of the best. But yeah, so you can actually go, there we go, Billion Gallon Lake Resort, and go and dive. You have to have the cold water diving suit. Here, check this out. Beautiful cave diving. So yeah, apparently there is a cave diving aspect of it, but you don't have to, go into these kinds of areas. You can just dive in the open water place and still go up, and it's, pretty safe. So there we go. Yeah, holy shit. Yes, exactly. Beautiful. Did you know that, Brad, that we had a scuba diving cave here in Missouri? See, even Brad is learning things this morning. All right, well, let's learn about why out-of-state nonprofits are spending millions of dollars to try and stop us from abolishing the income tax in Missouri. We'll talk about that with Camellia Peterson.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Thanks for sticking around. My next guest is my favorite guest. She comes on 2 times. There's 2 different iterations of this guest. There's the Tuesday Camellia and the Thursday Camellia. And I like the Tuesday Camellia. I'm glad that we have the Tuesday Camellia. But I just really love and cherish the Thursday Camellia because Thursday Camellia means that we're almost Friday in Missouri. And God bless it, I love the weekend. Camellia is a contributor here at the Wake Up America show and the Missouri State Director for AFP. She's one of the most effective boots-on-the-ground policy organizers here in the state. She kind of watches the Missouri legislature the same way that a hawk watches a field mouse, you know, in the field. Right now, she's watching a $3.8 million ballot fight over a constitutional amendment that supporters are calling tax relief And opponents are calling the everything tax. Camellia, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good morning. And I just have to say, my Jeffersonian Java came in, so I'm drinking my Jeffersonian Java this morning.
Some good stuff, isn't it?
Yes, I really do like this one. The lesson I learned, though, this time is that I'm probably so distracted right now that I thought I ordered whole bean and I actually ordered ground, which is like, it's fine. I'm drinking it and it tastes the same. So I don't know. I'm a whole bean person kind of normally, but hey, this is good either way.
Well, so Amendment 5, what is it? What does this thing do if it passes?
Amendment 5 is the ballot measure, which was passed in the legislature to phase out Missouri state income tax. Has to go to the voters primarily because we are essentially, the plan is to restructure the tax code because it's a mess, right? And so in order to get rid of the income tax, we need to restructure things, make it better, make it more fair. So yes, voters will go to the ballot on August 4th to say, yes, we want you to do this, or no, we want Missouri to stay stuck in the status quo and stagnation.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, what is the complete picture of what this amendment does, Camellia? And be totally honest. Don't give me the right-wing libertarian best case scenario picture. Tell us exactly what this Amendment 5 does.
Sure. It says the legislature has 5 years to pass a plan, which they'll do it this year if this passes, but it gives them a limit of 5 years to pass a plan that is solely with the specific purpose of phasing out the income tax. Now, in addition to that, it also puts in the Constitution that Missouri will reduce and eliminate their income tax, whichever means it's through, whether it's just through growth and we just keep knocking it down, or whether it's through, closing loopholes in the sales tax code and allowing us to replace some of that revenue. So they have a limited amount of time, lots of guardrails. They cannot increase your sales taxes and just like skyrocket them and charge you a lot of money because like the guardrails are in place, very strict.
Okay.
So that's essentially what it is. But probably the most important part of this is that it puts it in the Constitution. Once it's gone, you cannot bring the income tax back because it is banned constitutionally. You would have to do another constitutional amendment to do that.
Jesus, Mom. I have to restrain myself from describing what's happening to my body physically at this point. Camellia, now, the elimination of the income tax has met with violent opposition from mediocre minds, but I won't. You don't have to call them mediocre. That's my job. So, what is the opposition to Amendment 5 saying? What are they? And are the criticisms of Amendment 5 based in reality?
No, they're not based in reality. The saying that a lie travels halfway around the world while the truth is still getting its boots on.
Yes, we do. That's another Missourian Mark Twain.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Many such cases. And I think that's been our trouble with this, like so many other things, is that people gobble up the lies, right? And the negativity about it. And that, just like they always do, if it bleeds, it leads, right? The outrage sells. And so the left has been very good at saying, oh, they're going to triple your sales tax and you're giving a blank check to the legislature. And then they'll say, this is going to be the biggest cut to Missouri services you've ever seen, but also the biggest cash grab you've ever seen. So I don't know which it is,
Well, one of the criticisms that I hear from the people who are maybe a little bit more in the know on Missouri's tax situation is that it would do an end run around the Hancock Amendment. So what is the Hancock Amendment, and is this going to go around our established law about not raising taxes without voter approval?
No, it doesn't. That's the short answer. So for everybody else who doesn't know, Missouri has what they call the Hancock Amendment that basically says that you cannot implement a tax increase without it going to a vote of the people. What I will say about that is there are lots and lots of loopholes in the Hancock Amendment that have made it a lot less effective than people think it is. So that needs to be fixed as well. And there are efforts to do that as well. But no, this income tax phase out, ballot measure does not do anything. What it does is it asks the people, can we restructure the tax code? But it's not, you're not getting an overall tax increase with this. So there's no voting on a tax increase because you can't raise a sales tax on anything without lowering the income tax by the same amount. Like it's literally 1 for 1 here, that has to happen that way. And there's a lot of thoughts that we can do this not just revenue neutral, but revenue negative, so that we're actually saving money, and cutting things even more. So that's the idea. That's what everybody involved in this wants. But no, not true. And like I said, very limited. So as far as the guardrails on this.
What's the best case scenario for Missouri taxpayers, Camellia? Because there are people who are saying that this is going to shift the tax burden from progressive income taxes, which hit higher earners more, to broader sales taxes. But is there a scenario that could happen where the income tax gets eliminated and sales taxes don't rise?
Sure. So a few things to take into consideration. One of them being we currently have over 200 exemptions in our sales tax code. So there are a lot of things that are not contributing, and a lot of those are services. And when we talk about the money that's getting poured into this, part of that's from a realtors association who bought that sales tax carve out on the ballot 10 years ago. And so obviously they want to hang on to that. Now there are certain things that are going to be exempted, right? I mean, that's, healthcare off the table, a couple of other things like that. However, when you're talking about the services that are not currently getting taxed, we're talking mostly about luxury services. So who buys those services? Well, it's not me and you, right? It's the people who have a lot of money to spend on, luxury items and services. So, and there are a lot of things that we don't tax that people traveling through the state don't pay on either. So we're really missing a lot of opportunity to make the tax code more fair. And like I've heard the opposition say, including maybe some people on the right, they're very loud and noisy. They say that, well, this benefits rich people, the top 1%, right? That's not true, because who do you think can get all of the loopholes in their income tax? Like, it's all the wealthy people who have the army of lawyers and accountants to make sure they get every loophole possible. And there are a lot of them. So, this really does, and the bottom line is this helps the working class and lower income people.
Now, the Missouri Libertarian Party, all 5 of them have come out officially against this. I know we've talked about this before, but it bears repeating because some people are suggesting that I was lying, that the Missouri Libertarian Party had come out against abolishing our income tax. But let's steelman their argument, not strongman. Let's instead of strawmanning it. So the LPMO put out a resolution that says that they support net reductions in forced taxation without compromising other principles. So they say that Amendment 5 doesn't actually cut the overall size or burden of government. It merely rearranges how the state extracts revenue. Their argument is that true relief requires cutting wasteful spending so that families keep more of their earnings. How do you respond to that?
Sure. So the first thing, and by the way, one of the LP members is always in my mentions on social media, and I'm like, "What's your solution? Give me your solution."
Yeah,
right?
What's your better
question.
alternative? Right.
That's right. And so, and this is what I say. This plan is not a budget cutting plan. That's not its purpose. We do budget cutting like at other times during session. When you're doing the budget and you're cutting spending. And what I would say to that is, like, in this last session, they cut over $4 billion from the proposed budget. And there are a lot of federal dollars that are contributing to that number that are going away after COVID, right? And I think that when you talk about this, you also have to talk about the responsibility of the people in why our budget is so big. And so much, like the federal government, the state budget, so much of it is entitlements. And these are entitlements that have been put into the Constitution, or they have been voted in by the people. The people in Missouri voted to expand Medicaid. And that ballooned our budget so drastically. And like the legislators fought that. They actually tried in that next year after it was passed. They were not going to fund it. But the courts got involved and forced the issue. And so here we are. And so, yeah, that's what I would say to the Libertarian Party is like, we're with you. We agree spending needs to be cut, right? And that is still the goal in all of this. Even the people who are pushing and created this plan, like they want to see the spending cut too. But you just literally cannot cut enough to completely get rid of the income tax. And our taxation system right now isn't fair with sales tax, right? I mean, you've got all of these exemptions. Like, this is a way that we can start to fix that, is closing these loopholes.
Now, it's not just the Missouri Libertarian Party that's come out against this one. Let's talk about people who have political power who have come out against this. Sure. Missouri voters passed a constitutional amendment in 2010 that bans real estate transfer taxes, and then another in 2016 prohibiting new sales taxes on services. Yeah. So the realtors are warning that Amendment 5 could undo both of those. Is that a legitimate concern, or are they overstating it?
It is not, in that this measure specifically states that this does not, they can't mess with anything that was constitutionally passed prior to 2015 or 16, something like that. So the transfer taxes, that's off the table because they can't touch that, right? I think that, what they can touch is this ban on sales taxes on services, right? And so that's where, we have, one of the things that they talk about a lot is our sales tax code was written during the silent film era. And so it's been over 100 years, and it's not modernized at all. And that's part of the problem here. None of us like taxes, but if we're going to do them at all, a consumption tax gives you the most control over that. And we should spread it out so that nobody's having to pay a ton of taxes.
So the legislature already has the authority to reduce the state income tax without a constitutional amendment. The state auditor's own fiscal note says so. So why is this amendment necessary? What is it granting to lawmakers that they don't already have?
We can cut it down based on revenue growth. And we have been I can't remember how many years ago it's been now. It's not been that many, probably within the last 10, that we've cut the income tax, stepped it down from 6%. We're at 4.7 now. So we have gone very slowly. The problem is that, the growth from that is not keeping up with, everything else that's coming against that, whether it's inflation or otherwise. And we're stagnating as far as other states the population migration is going to other states, and is going to the states that have no income tax because that's where the businesses are going. So I think the argument for this is that around the country, including states that border us, there is a race to zero when it comes to income tax. And so from a competitiveness perspective, Missouri can't fiddle around and let's keep doing, a little bit here, a little bit there. And it'll take us 25, 30 years to get there. That doesn't do us any good. So if we want to really create, growth and transformational change in the state, this is something that we need to do in a very timely manner and in a way that keeps us competitive with everyone else. Like I said, states all around us that border us, they're going down. Arkansas, Iowa, Oklahoma, we're, we can sit here and argue about it, or we can, and be left behind, or we can get on the ball and be the first to do it to zero. We would be the first, by the way.
So what does AFP want voters to walk into the voting booth here in Missouri knowing that most of them do not know right now?
Sure. So when you walk into the booth and you look at that ballot language, I really do believe that most people are going to see, do you want to phase out the income tax? Do you want to protect the funding that goes to public schools? Do you want to reduce your personal property taxes? And they're going to say yes. Because that's probably one of the biggest things that this bill does, in addition to the income tax piece, is it creates the really only viable pathway to eliminating other taxes at the local level, including real personal property tax, could be even sales tax, like grocery tax at the local level, because all of that is local, and it's the state saying to the local governments, look, if you get a windfall from, closing these sales tax loopholes, you can't just keep that extra money. You have to use it to reduce other taxes. So like that, to me, that's the most exciting part of this, because we have fought so hard to make changes to property taxes here in Missouri. And it's hard because it's the local governments that resist us and say they don't want the state government to do that. So we have a real battle when it comes to that. And I think this gives us our best way to actually get something done on it.
Camellia, your favorite places for outdoor adventures in the state of Missouri?
Oh gosh, you were talking about some that I need to go back and listen to again, because they're like, for being a lifelong Missourian, there were a couple that I didn't know about. But I love, I've traveled all over the state now, and I'm going to admit something here, and all my Southwest people don't hate me, but even though I grew up and I live in the Southwest part of the state, it's not my favorite part of the state. I really, really love mid-Missouri with all of the bluffs and the hiking and then Southeast Missouri is just gorgeous. So those are my favorite parts of the state. So we've got the water, we've got the canoeing or the kayaking, and you've got the hiking too, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. We've always had great adventures together in Missouri. I think my favorite is our Herman tradition, and last year was a lot of fun because Dad came out and had a really good time, and so that and of course we love to dress up like German people with our
we're cosplaying and co-opting their culture.
Cosplaying, yes, exactly. All right.
Yeah, no. Well, also we like to canoe by the light of the moon, or no moon, actually. So.
Oh my God. Okay, tell that story, Camellia. We've got enough time. Tell the story about the time that we got in really big trouble out on the river in Missouri.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Who all were we with? But anyway,
Doug Ashby.
Yes, and Neil was there.
Yes.
Who else? Anyway, there were a few of us, and we were canoeing, and there was some question about where we were supposed to, I think that Doug thought we were going not as far upstream as we did. And so we were a lot farther upstream. So it was taking us a lot longer to get to the point where we needed to get out. And so it was getting darker and darker, and we were not anywhere near close there yet. And there was no moon that night. It was pitch black. And so we literally, for the last, I don't know how long now, we're canoeing by sound. And
we were like bats using echolocation on the river that night. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah. Like there's logs in the middle of there, so you have to listen for where the water's rushing around something so you don't tip over.
Yeah, I remember at one point it was pitch dark, and I think our eyes hadn't adjusted to the moon yet, and the river forked off in two directions, and we had to and it's important that you decide which way to go, because one could be completely blocked off, and then you're screwed sitting out there in the middle of the river at night. And then we had to like all get off at this one part, and then Doug had to go and like hitch a ride to go back to where we were, because we'd gone so far and had to come back and get our soggy asses back out of the thing.
And he hitched a ride back with convicts. And it was like a whole thing. Yeah, no, lost my flip-flops in the mud, and it was certainly a memorable thing.
It was. So if you come to Missouri and you go on an adventure with me and Camellia, rest assured we won't let that happen to you again.
Not after dark.
Yeah, not after dark. Thank you, Camellia, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great day, everyone.
I don't know what.
All right, coming back. Tom Pappert is here, and we need him because somebody just uploaded 3 hours. George Washington spent 8 years making sure nobody knew where he was. Troop movements, secret dispatches. The man was a ghost. So when a barista leaned out a window and asked for his exact location in exchange for points they called stars, he looked at his flag and said, "I've already got my stars. 13 of them. Keep your dignity and your location intact. Grab a box of Washington's Revolutionary Roast at forlibertyshop.com. 'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.
In a city where businesses never sleep, the technology still crashes. When technology turns criminal, they send up the signal. He's not a myth, and he's definitely not your nephew who knows computers. He installs, he protects, he backs it up, he keeps your business online and out of trouble. Managed IT, security, cloud, support that actually answers the phone. Layer 8 tech. When your network breaks, he wakes. Call Drew before your tech needs a rescue signal. This summer isn't about sunscreen and safe spaces. It's about liberty, laughs, and looking like a red, white, and righteous badass. Welcome to the Summer of Freedom collection. Beach towels bold enough to trigger a liberal arts professor. Tank tops louder than a 4th of July fireworks finale. And mugs that scream, "Don't tread on my caffeine." Whether you're storming the sandbar or just grilling like George Washington with a Bluetooth speaker, this is the gear that lets everyone know. You're not here to play woke. You're here to play cornhole with conviction. So crack open a cold one, fire up the freedom, and rock the merch that makes communists cry. The Summer of Freedom is here, and it's absolutely unapologetic. Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have drag queen story hour for toddlers, pronouns are mandatory, and Harvard can't define woman. Oh, and we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. Right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense, but you can carry on the fight with gear that would have made King George cry. Shop bold, shop free, shop forlibertyshop.com.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
Picture this. It's 1776. Thomas Jefferson is hunched over his desk at Monticello, ink-stained fingers, writing the most radical document in human history. Do you really think he was sipping Starbucks? No. He was drinking something bold, something black, something brewed strong enough to fuel a revolution. That's the spirit behind Founding Flavors, our signature line of liberty-fueled coffee. No soy froth, no climate guilt, no corporate slogans. Just real coffee, inspired by the men who wrote freedom into existence. Every cup is a quiet protest. Against mediocrity, against tyranny, against bad coffee. So this morning, skip the globalist brew. Grab something worthy of a free man's sunrise. Founding Flavors. Now brewing at forlibertyshop.com.
If Thomas Massey runs for president in 2028, I think he's got a really good shot to win. I'm saying that right now. I think he could win this thing. I think he is much more in line with where the voters are than anyone else who's going to be running. But even if he doesn't win, this isn't going to be something like Ron Paul or Pat Buchanan. This is going to be something on the scale of Bernie Sanders. It's going to be huge. I think that would really be the best thing I can imagine for the country politically right now. If Thomas...
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. They call me AP for Liberty, but there's two APs for Liberty. The second AP for Liberty joins us live right now, Austin Padgett. Good morning, Austin. Welcome to the show. Good to see you, brother.
Good morning, Austin. Happy to be on the show.
Whew, we've got a lot to discuss here. Boy, Austin, has this, you said it, the whole thing during the break. Challenging times for people like ourselves. I mean, how did you react when you first saw that clip from Dave Smith about, Thomas Massey could be the future of American politics?
What's a good analogy? Like the way you react when you see something that's like hard to look at because it's sad.
Cringe.
Like that's yeah.
Cringe.
And there's a lot to go over with this campaign. Like, the reasons why he lost, he campaigned on Israel and Epstein. Ed Gallerin campaigned on Trump's agenda, right? Or that's what the ads, Ed Gallerin's ads were about, since he didn't even really have to campaign. And so that kind of tells the whole story. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you kill yourself on being unreasonable over this single issue. And then when people vote you down or ignore you, then you assume it's because of that one issue and your psychosis accelerates. But it's because you're being single issue voters on an issue that's not popular in the Republican Party at a time of like intense coalition politics.
Which isn't to say that they're wrong, right? We're not discussing necessarily the correctness of the argument just yet, the principle of the argument just yet. We'll get to that in just a few minutes, but electorally, the ideas that Thomas Massey campaigned on, I think were significantly different from the ideas that he used to campaign on when he had 80% of the vote. But my argument, Austin, has been that libertarians are completely unaware, they're self-unaware, not just of the way that they're perceived, but of how unpopular their most popular issues are, which we find to be deeply unfortunate, because the most popular issues amongst libertarians right now seems to be, and I'm saying this, somewhat hyperbolically, but I mean, sticking it to the Jews to some large extent, which electorally is unpopular. Now, it might be popular among libertarians. It might get you a lot of clicks online, might get you a lot of podcast views. But it's probably unwise to run in a rural district in Kentucky on that issue.
Yeah, and nobody cares, right? Like, sure, you're going to get, if you campaign with the American right guy, there's probably going to be some rich Jewish Americans who donate against your campaign, but that's still not what the issues were about. And the funding was, big on both sides. It was like 18 million to 25 or 30. There's a bunch of different numbers floating around that are kind of inconsistent, but there was enough money on both sides to get the message out. And the swing from, 80% to losing by 10 points should tell people something. But, it's not that I'm kind of went easy on it when Massey lost. I didn't even say anything that day, because it is a big blow. That's one thing to warn people about this for years. It's another for them to be like faced with a terrible result of not correctly processing their mistakes. So what I expect to see is the 7 stages of grief. I think we were at shock and disbelief, and now we're at denial. And I'm being careful about prodding people too hard in denial, because the next step is anger. And then we get to bargaining, depression, reconstruction, and then maybe they can find some hope. I am full of hope. I'm not focused on Epstein and Israel, so I'm aware that like education has been defederalized and that we're reindustrializing on a massive scale, and that all the leftist globalist countries NGO networks have been disrupted and they're losing elections.
Yeah, USAID
I know what's going on.
Yeah, USAID got disrupted, and all of a sudden, all these South American countries are going from socialist and communist towards more capitalistic candidacy. So there's lots of reason.
As I predicted, I bet they could beat Europe.
Yeah, lots of reason to be white pilled. But we'll get to that in just a moment, because you say that the libertarians, the ones who are kind of the loudest ones in the room, who represent the label, haven't talked about anything else besides Israel in years. So when did you first notice that the obsession was crowding everything else out?
Well, people get mad at you when you start noticing things. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah.
I think my pinned post is from over 2 years ago, before the election, warning that I said what would happen was if the libertarians split with Trump over Israel, it would put the ball into the court of the neoconservatives, who would take credit for all the economic reforms that I know Trump's going to do, that I know are going to be successful. They're going to take credit for the things they fought against for years, and they're going to take that political capital. Libertarians are going to be putting themselves on the outside and fighting, and then will continue to be Trump, and the momentum will be successful, but maybe not as good as it could have been, or they will ultimately solve the problems in a way where, like, libertarians just become a historical footprint of people who predicted a future that other people brought about, right? Because we said we want the U.S. to be free. We want to end the globalist stuff. It's going to be other people who do that, other people who can actually engage and take political responsibility. And libertarians were kind of in the intellectual spot, and the intellectual spot is incredibly valuable, right? Like, Plato rates philosophers above kings, but we got jealous of the popularity of the king, which was Trump. And so then we became sophists, which is all the way at the very bottom of the hierarchy, right above tyrant, right? Because sophists help tyrants. That's like the populist politics dynamics, where you get someone who's a vessel for the crowd. And so it's kind of a poetic symmetry that king and philosopher are mere sophist and tyrant.
So you use the word sophists, and you say these are bitter intellectuals turned sophists, which is a pretty specific accusation. Who are you describing, and what does this sophistry look like in practice?
I would say Dave is probably the most accurate example of this, and it looks like I don't know. You see, increasingly he says things that nobody can take seriously. It's like you can't believe they're saying it, right? It's like a big weakness from previous positions, and there's a lot of stuff that ends up getting denied to support the importance of Israel. For example, right? If I said Trump's effort against the globalists was actually important, right? So maybe that's a reason not to care about Israel. Now libertarians start to argue that globalism isn't real, one world government is a conspiracy kook thing, when it's really more about coordination of policy, not necessarily an official government with enforcement. And so, like, and then all these narratives we spent 10 years really destroying the left and burrowing under and exposing them. And we had all these great narratives, right? Like that the left treats you like cattle, right? They treat you without agency. The Fabian Socialist logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's precedence to this when, like, herding civilizations take over farmer civilizations, and they literally treat them like sheep. The removal of your agency through central planning, the analogies they love to make to bees and ants. Like, we know leftists treat you like cattle without agency. And that was kind of a known thing and a talking point. And that's been replaced with, treating you like an animal is a Jewish thing, right? And that's connected to, like, Epstein and Palantir. And then another thing we used to know is the left ruined your life. They ruined the economy. And then we pretended you can't afford a house because of Iraq Zionists. Trump's deregulation cuts, just with, like, modest estimates, save $2 to $3 trillion a year, not even counting compounding innovation. That's more than the entire war on terror in like 2-3 years.
Now, Austin, you're very white-pilled, and I love it. And we're going to get there to all the white pill moments here in just a moment. But before we do, we've got to like address the black pill in the room thoroughly here, because the libertarian critique of empire and foreign intervention used to be one of the movement's most coherent and defensible positions. I mean, Ron Paul built an entire coalition on it. That's how I got into the libertarian movement. But how did that legitimate argument become a vehicle for something uglier?
Specifically, we used to talk about the incentives of empire, and then it became because Israel did it, right? That's kind of the foundational reason that people, the context people talk about it in now, which is clearly just a way to double up, and their marketing with the Groyper demographic, who already blames everything on Jews. So you blame everything on Israel, then you've got a synced marketing channel for your political populism. And so that's why we that's kind of like how you could describe us turning into sophists to basically target that low-level populist narrative, but without actually, and then wanting to be popular without actually adopting political responsibility or forging solutions like Trump. Because someone might say, oh, well, Trump's a populist too. But Trump's integrated his populism with actual solutions, right? Like when populism is like that, then it's good. When it's like sophistry to tyrant, then it's bad. When it's philosopher to king, then it's good.
We got a comment in the chat I think is worthy of addressing. Horse Force, he's very upset at what we're saying. He says, yeah, libertarians are so ignorant. He's being sarcastic. He says they believe the nation should be constitutional. So stupid of them. But here's the thing. They are ignorant because you don't get points for having principles. You get points for putting them into practice. I don't give a shit if you agree with me. If you can't advance that ball down the field, or you refuse to advance the ball down the field, if your principles prevent you from advancing those principles, you don't get credit for saying, oh, I'm a good person. It's like when Dave Smith says, oh, I'm anti-war. It's the same mentality when the left says, oh, I'm anti-gun. Okay, well, you don't get credit for saying, oh, well, I'm a good person and I think good things are good and bad things are bad. Okay, well, yeah, you essentially have the mentality of a child there. But you say that libertarians want the popularity of Trump without doing the work that it takes to make real political change. So what does the work actually look like to have the political popularity of Trump, and why aren't libertarians doing it?
Oh, well, part of it is one is you think, okay, because we're not in office. And then there's other reasons like, okay, why are you not in office? But the other fundamental reason is I don't think we're even capable of it, even if we were in office. Because libertarians have never really engaged in what it takes to do anything, right? When you get to the point where you actually have responsibility, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks, where you're like, holy crap, wait, what am I touching? What is it moving? What are going to be the impacts? Like, how am I going to stay in control? It's very easy to say, take all the bring every troop home. All right. Like if you get into the office and you pull every troop home from every base in the U.S., do you think that like something could happen? It's easy to say online, but have you really considered the dynamics of the security market, or the dependencies, or like how to engage with dismantling an empire outside of a red button question, right? And that's why libertarians are there's kind of still lulberts on foreign policy. We got over the lulbert issue on a lot of topics, right? We got over it on welfare, where we're like, oh, I guess we can't abolish that in one day. We got over it with immigration, where we're like, okay, we're not actually a private property society. Like, but on war, we're still kind of in this easy, just bring it all home phase, which it completely neglects the constraints of the situation or the actual reality of Trump's strategy in terms of making the region less dependent on us.
I'm pulling up an image right now that I made yesterday. It's a cartoon which shows an extremely dysgenic Lulbert who, is carrying several diseases. He's got his black and yellow flag. He's got his transgender flag, and he's screaming at someone who looks ostensibly like myself. And he's screaming at me saying, "You're not real libertarians like me." And it's there to demonstrate the point that it's like when you have this group of people who are so disgusting and who parade themselves naked on stage, and you say, "Oh, you're not a real libertarian and I'm the real libertarian," you're not really saying what you think you're saying in other ways. When you look, the aesthetics of the Trump movement, for example, aesthetics are so important. And it's such an important thing that libertarians had an entire battle at their national convention over whether or not they should be required to wear clothes. Right? They're still fighting the battle over whether or not they should put the most dysgenic people in the liberty movement as the public's face. So the libertarians can't even agree that you should take an attractive person who's capable of speaking about your principles clearly and putting them as the public face of your movement. But libertarians, they seem to want to push in everybody's face the most hedonistic and the most disgusting people who claim to be the most libertarians, and try and push out anyone who, smells good or might have showered within the past week. So, I mean, you'll never even achieve the popularity of the Trump movement without even an attempt at the basic aesthetics. Would we, Austin?
No. And I mean, there's been some theoretical progress on that, right? Where the perception of libertarians was more left wing. Like when I met Trump, the first thing he asked us was like, I'm nice to gays, and would you like weed legalized? And we're like, great, thank you. But the economy and war or whatever. So that was the perception of libertarians, and we successfully kind of shifted it off of that. But we then immediately ruined the new label with foreign policy Lulbertism, working with the left to hurt the right rather than help the right, and everything else that goes along with that. So now it's like, okay, how do you rebuild again right after we just fixed the label just to ruin it? And part of it was that we never really fixed the label because there were problems within our movement that we didn't really realize.
Now, the LP ran Chase Oliver in 2024 and got completely blown out. It was the worst vote total, I think, maybe in LP's history. They might have had one that was worse. Do you think that the LP is beyond saving, Austin?
Hopefully. It depends, right? Like if you're existing in a vacuum, right? If I just had the LP and I could use it productively. But the question is like, do you have the other people with the vision and the energy to sustain that? And is it easier just to like?
I can tell you that it's not there. Debate. It's not there. I mean, I spent 10 years in the Libertarian Party back when people thought there was going to be a libertarian moment, and even then I realized that they absolutely do not want to win. Anybody who tries to sort of break out, it becomes the crabs in a bucket mentality, and we don't need to dissect that here. But I mean, is there a version though of libertarian foreign policy that is intellectually honest and doesn't end up in a place where we have to pretend like Thomas Massey is going to have a groundswell of support in 2028? Or, I mean, do you think that the non-interventionist framework has been so thoroughly poisoned that it can't be rehabilitated?
Well, I think it's just not engaging. It's not engaging with the dependency, the security dependency. If you think of security like a market and the U.S. doing the military role of a lot of countries, like, they're not addressing that situation. So your end goal might be good, but like if you're not engaging, you can't solve the problem. And the libertarian solution is typically, right, what we want to tell conservatives is, oh, you do get a free market and then you have a really strong country, be able to produce your own infrastructure, your own munitions, right? You want it like World War II. The reason we were strong was we had factories. So like prosperity is strength. Okay. So why aren't we incorporating what Trump's doing there into our libertarian argument about war? right? And I've said it before. Trump got Europe to fund its own defense. Japan got Europe. He got Japan to build their own military. He's making the Middle East less dependent on us. He's making it so that the U.S. is less insecure because we can produce our own stuff and we're getting more productive and prosperous. So that is the actual way you would unwind the empire. So, I mean, that's, again, Trump, number one libertarian, strikes again. Number one defender of the Constitution, which is funny because like the libertarians went with like Oron and his philosophy and all that, and he talks crap about the Constitution. Now they're saying that, we're violating the Constitution. Meanwhile, Trump is using the Constitution to eliminate government. So like, it's just losing and complaining and thrashing on every side from every potential angle.
Well, now, Austin, I read your writings quite often, and I agree with probably 99% of everything that I say, but I see you sort of experiencing the same thing that I experienced, which there's a lot of shooting the messenger going on. So like my argument has been, at least as clearly as I can state it, is that libertarians' problems right now are entirely self-inflicted. All of the problems that we have are our fault. But in this phase of grief that libertarians are suffering with under 2020, under this kind of massy delusion that we're struggling with, there's this sort of desire to blame the problems that libertarians face on Fox News, on boomer, like they're blaming the boomers. They're blaming AIPAC. They're blaming
it's very leftist.
It's a very leftist framework, right? It's a victimhood. We're victims. If do we think that if AIPAC didn't exist, that people would suddenly be voting for libertarians? I could assure you, most assuredly, they would not fucking vote for libertarians. You could eliminate AIPAC today, and every Jew in the you could deport every Jew in the United States, and libertarians would still lose every fucking election. But they want to shoot the messenger because nobody wants to be told that they're fat and they need to lose weight. Nobody wants to be told that they need to get in the gym and they need to get healthy and they need to, get a diet and exercise routine. But I mean, politically, isn't that really what libertarians need? They need to get their fat asses off the couch and they need a 1980 style montage. They need to get into the martial arts. They need to, maybe win a few matches in the dojo, do something healthy for themselves and stop being dysgenic and stop coping and stop shooting the messengers who are telling them, hey, you're fat, you need to lose weight. I mean, maybe we just need to be nicer about it. Like you've gained a little weight, libertarians. Perhaps you might be the problem.
Ooh, have you noticed this might be a problem?
It might be a problem. It might be that you've eaten too much. You've eaten 20 eclairs every night.
Perhaps it's not all the Jews.
Perhaps it's not the Jews' reason why you're full. Like libertarians would find a reason to blame would blow up to 300 pounds and they'd still find a reason to blame the Jews. They do that. They do that. They call it goy slop. Have you seen this?
I saw an American right guy talking about that at the grocery store about how you should only buy kosher food to avoid the poison.
It's the goy slop that they're eating. Food. Yeah, not that their fat ass can't read a nutrition label.
It's worse than even being fat. It's like a lot of times it's like a dynamic where you're taking advantage of someone or using someone, and then someone calls that out, and then you get even more angry, right? Than if they're just calling out your own behavior. Mm-hmm. There's like more to be defensive about, but
they're suspicious. They're suspicious of us because we tell them that they need to fix their own problems, but they believe everything Dave Smith says because he gives them all. You want to talk about goy slop? Talk about that retarded bullshit about Massey 2028. It's like that's what you should be suspicious of. The guy who tells you exactly what you want to hear in the face of all the evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, it turns out that libertarians aren't actually independent thinkers. Like a lot of people arrived at libertarianism because they were independent thinkers. Right. But in terms of the propagation of narratives within the movement, that's just like any other movement. People are just latching on and repeating stuff and letting these narratives control their worldview and without examining like the different flaws and the narrative blocks along the narrative chain or things like that. And it's also the psychosis, right? Because if you rationally deconstruct a narrative, like I did this with some people with Massey and AIPAC stuff, and I got them to realize that it's not.
All right, looks like I'm going to have to cut it off early there. Sorry about that for Austin Padgett. And sorry we couldn't get Tom Pappert for you today. Hopefully we'll have him another time. So let's just wrap it all up right here. What do you say? We've had a good show today. The 250th anniversary conversation in the beginning about Vanilla Ice. Did you know that he wrote Ice Ice Baby when he was 16 years old? It became the first rap song to actually hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. They sold 12 million copies. And 35 years later, the man who made that song is the only performer in American entertainment with enough spine to show up in the National Mall and celebrate the country that made all of it possible. So that song's going to play us out today. I want you guys to think about what it means that Robert Van Winkle, a guy who doesn't vote, who says he just thinks we should be allowed to celebrate our country, is currently carrying more of the weight of American optimism than most people with Senate seats and television contracts and libertarians. The artist who bailed wrote statements. Vanilla Ice wrote a commitment. Here's the philosophical point about all this stuff. Obviously the Vanilla Ice stuff is just fun and funny, but I mean, there is a deeper meaning to this, and I've been thinking about this a lot. My wife and I are expecting our first child on Christmas Day, and when you have a kid coming, the black pill is not an option. The black pill is not a luxury you can afford. Pessimism is fine if your timeline ends with you, but when you are building something that outlasts you, when there's a person coming who will live in the America that we either defend or surrender, you don't get to check out. You don't get to run 3 hours of doom on your podcast and say that this is your moral clarity. You have to show up every day because somebody is still counting on the country still being worth something when they get here. America turns 250 years old just about a month from now. The oldest constitutional republic on earth is still standing. Vanilla Ice is still showing up, and I have a very good personal reason to make sure this country is worth the trouble. I hope you do too. It's time to wake up America and rise and freedom. Year of our Lord, 1801, President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from 4 Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at 4libertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.